Crooked Ideas is a nonprofit arm of Crooked Media. And Crooked Media is one of the producers, along with Wondery and Push Black, of an amazing, phenomenal, award-winning podcast called Empire City, The Origin of the NYPD, produced by this brother right here, Chinjinwaj Kumanyika. Can we give a round of applause, please? So we wanted to have a series of live events to really begin to introduce the series, particularly to folks that are working around these issues, around policing, community organizing, because the podcast can really give folks an idea as to how we can begin to utilize the history of policing in general in order to push back on what we're seeing today, which is over-policing to the highest level. So I do want to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. I'd like to start with you, Rich. If you could introduce yourself, and we'll end with Chinjinwaj, and then we'll get started with a conversation. Again, it's going to be really informal, and so, I mean, it's family here, right? So, folks, we're going to take questions, we want feedback, and we really want to make it to where, you know, we're just sitting and having a conversation among friends. So, yes, ma'am.
Hello. Can y'all hear me?
You gotta project, you gotta put your protest voice on.
Without the mic, I'll do it without the mic. How about this? Better?
Yeah.
All right. Janitza, or Daddy for short, she, her, age, and pronouns, currently serving as the director of the Power to Win initiative over at the Action Lab. How much introduction you want me to share or give out?
That's good, because I
Okay.
have a question for you.
Okay.
And for the cameras, the mic might actually be.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Alright, again, Janitza Mendez, or Jadi for short. She, her, age, and pronouns, currently serving as the director of the Power to Win initiative over at the Action Lab.
Woo! Let's go.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Deshaun Bigger Allman, the program manager of Brownsville and Violence Out.
All right.
Woo!
Check. So my name is Chinjinwaj Kumanyika. I'm a professor at NYU Journalism, and I'm the host and creator of Empire City, along with my team who created it. So I'm also do some work organizing, mostly in the higher ed labor space with the AAUPs.
Thank you. All soft spoken. But I'm gonna just pass this mic. It seems like this mic has the most juice.
Yes.
So we're gonna be like the cipher. And I want to start with, and it was really a question I have for everybody, which is, can you talk about a moment that brought you into this work? I like for myself, and some people might know me as a hip hop artist. I was an independent hip hop artist for many years, and one of the things that brought me into that space was I remember getting the Final Call newspaper and reading a story about a group of 6 black men that were charged with attempted murder for a fight in high school in Jenner, Louisiana. And I remember reading that story and saying, man, like, I wanted to do something. So I wrote a song called Free the Gina 6, and I put it on my MySpace page. I go that far back. And somebody sent the song to a website called allhiphop.com, and they put it on their front page. And I remember I worked for Pittsburgh Public Schools. I couldn't even access, like, they blocked those type of sites. So I left work in the middle of the day, and I was like, oh. And then somebody sent the song to a radio host named Michael Bays, and it ended up being played all over the country. And I kind of got recruited as like a movement artist, a movement hip hop artist. This was almost 20 years ago. It was in 2006. So can you just talk about a moment, and I'll start with you, Richard, that brought you to this work?
All right. I was born and raised in the beautiful island of the Dominican Republic. So my father was petitioned by my grandparents, who were at the time here living in the United States. And because of the immigration systems of the United States, my mom had to stay back in the DR because they were not legally married. And at the time, my brother and I were already in the picture. I was about 10-ish, 9 or 10, and my brother was younger. But my father had to migrate essentially. And then a year or two later, my brother and I were able to enter the States with the privilege of coming in as green card holders. But it meant that my mom had to stay back. And so at the age of 10, I had to essentially grow up faster than I had expected. Being the older sister, the firstborn, now like being an immigrant and like understanding what that meant, being in a foreign country, while also learning a new language, a new culture, a new environment. And to some extent, essentially like being the woman of the house because my mom wasn't around. That was a lot. And so that's what brought me in and trying to figure it out, how to continue to do community work and how to kind of like fight back and try to ensure that as many families as possible were united or stayed united. In the long story short, my parents decided to get divorced. And at the age of 14, I met her in New York and started doing immigration work then. Got introduced around DACA, comprehensive immigration reform, and that's what has fueled me to stick around.
Well, I'm gonna tell you the truth here. All right. When I first started doing the work, it was just a job. It was just a job. I'm coming home from prison. I'm known a little bit, so I wanna make some money. But as the years went on, I came to the realization, and I started being around different organizations. Kill Violence Big Sister. You know who Kill Violence Big Sister is, right? She ain't here right now, but her, Erica. Organizations like We Build the Block, I realized that nothing and nobody is coming to save our people. We can't be like the Kennedys. What can we? We gotta ask what we can do for ourselves, not what could our country do for us, because we already know that they're not coming. Nobody's coming. So somebody had to step up. So I had to start looking for the hero and try to become one of the heroes, because we've already done the damage part of it, so let's do the fixing part of it. So that's what made me stay doing the work.
Very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, I want to just start out too, I introduced myself earlier, but I gotta say, I just want to put some respect on all the organizations that came, out here. We Build the Block, Brownsville Safety Alliance, Action Lab, Churches for Affordable Housing, and so many others here. Who else? Life Camp, Black Gotham Experiences in the building, and everybody who came out. This is a crucial time for us to be talking about safety. We are literally in the middle of fascism right at this minute. People are being kidnapped off the streets. The president has called for mayors and governors to be arrested. We all know what's popping down at 26 Federal Plaza. And the problem is that the people who have the expertise in keeping us safe aren't the people in front of the conversation. So I made a podcast called Empire City, and I'll talk about why I made it and why I thought the history was important. Briefly, what I'll say is that as somebody who was on the streets in some of the movements that happened over the last decade, I realized though that when it came to really talking about the origins of this, sometimes people would just say, oh, the police started from slave patrols. But slave patrols is not a history, that's like two words. What slave patrols? Where? Was it the same in every state? What about the policing of the labor movement? What about other kinds of policing? So I was like, we need a deeper history. And when I went, even to some activists, now in general in our community, people know, right, they get what this institution is about. But even in our community, when I ask some of the specifics about it, I find we have over 18,000 police departments in this country, and the fact that most people can't tell you what the first 5 were and where they started, that should be in every curriculum. We should all know that, especially if we're trying to solve that. And another thing I'll say is that, people have different, police one of those things that policing and public safety is one of the things that everybody has a strong opinion on. and people don't all agree, and maybe we shouldn't all agree. But I felt that we definitely needed the history, because no matter what your take is, you need to know how we got here before you can solve it. So I made a podcast, but the problem is we're not going to podcast our way out of this. The people like the Brownsville Safety Alliance, We Build the Block, all these groups, they have been already doing it. And so I'm really honored that you come here. This is a start, it's an intimate gathering, and One Hood in Pittsburgh. Give it up for One Hood. This brother here, my brother Jasiri X, he has tirelessly worked to put this together. He's been doing the work. He was one of my first mentors in the work. So this was my little thing I wanted to say, just to say how much I appreciate it, and I hope we can continue to do this. If there's anything that this podcast can do, I hope people listen to this show and see what you can learn. But what I hope it really does is have a platform to have the people like Bigger, like Yaritza, Erica Ford's gonna come out, like Jasir, the people who are in the, like Dana, who are in the weeds doing the work, seeing how we actually keep people safe. We got victories that happen literally today we're gonna hear about that people don't even know. And that's what needs to be in the front. So I actually don't even care if I say anything else on this panel because I want to hear from other folks. I just wanted to come like that.
How did you get?
Oh!
How did you get from hip hop artist, which you were, to
Right.
professor and wanting to use your platform for conversations like this?
Yeah, I mean, I just, as a hip hop artist, I saw the tremendous power that media had in reaching people. But also, and I don't want to get into like the sort of, I don't want to make it a generational thing where you just, old man hating on hip hop, but the hip hop artists that I knew, Public Enemy, some of these people, they were like the analysis. When they started talking, I was loving the way the music sounded, but I was also, as a child, realizing, oh wow, I don't know enough. And I was literally going to study certain things, and so I kind of came up in that thing, and that was part of the journey. But I think the real thing in terms of Empire City was that, I would be in the streets and we would say, back up, we want freedom. All these racist cops, we don't need them, right? And then I would say, but is the problem with the police that they're racist? Is that actually the extent of the problem? Because actually I noticed the police like when you say that, because then they just say, oh, we can just get a black cop and say he's not racist, and that solves it. So I remember being in South Carolina, and the cops shot a young white male down because they thought he had some drugs on him, unarmed, in a car. How do you begin to explain that, right? And so I started to realize, like, wow, we need a deeper story. And I think there was those moments where I realized that some of the things people were saying didn't explain it well enough is what motivated me into the work.
Thank you. So I'm gonna come back to you, and then I'll go back to the panel. But I want to come back to you around that piece where, and I think you touched on it in terms of, I'm a person, and a lot of us have been pushing back against the police for many years. I wrote songs, I done, showed up at different places. We done, stood outside. We had a high-profile police killing in 2018 of a young man named Antoine Rose, who was killed right outside. When you mentioned all of these different police departments, it wasn't the city of Pittsburgh, it was outside, it was East Pittsburgh. We were able to organize to actually get that police department shut down in East Pittsburgh. It was only like 5-6 cops. Yeah, we got 5-6 cops over there. But in terms of, I think one of the things about Empire City is like you wanted to give activists like me the language. So like, what language, what are some language that we should be using? Again, because I'll go online, and to me, what I'm seeing particularly in this overreach of federal policing right now, I'm seeing racist police, right? I'm seeing, to me, it's like, here's the move to give all of these, like, these young white kind of militarized people jobs now to come into our community. So now they have license and badges to come in to harass our community. I'm originally from the south side of Chicago. We saw what happened in Chicago, where they came into a housing project in Chicago with Black Hawk helicopters. So is there, like, am I talking about it wrong? Is that one of the things, and what should be, or how should we be talking about policing?
I think there's about 3 big mistakes we make when we talk about the institution of policing. And I do want to try to be brief because I want to get back to our expert panelists here. The first thing, and I think the most pervasive thing, is that as soon as you start talking about alternatives to the police, right? Things like what is happening, the deep work when people are doing like interventions and violence prevention, or when people start talking about budgets, what people will do is immediately talk about the violence that does happen in the community as though we only have two choices. Tons of police, military, you know what I'm saying, with guns doing it, or you're gonna have, or it's like if you don't have them, then you have the violence in the community. So I wanted to bring history in to say what history does not show that police stop the intra-community violence. But people who live in our communities know this already. Police show up after someone has been shot, right? And so that's one of the big misses, that you can't get very far into conversation because immediately, and listen, sometimes that's even coming from people in the community, because if you have someone who's been shot and experienced that, you want an urgent answer, you know? But Khalil Gibran Muhammad, the tremendous historian, said, sometimes when you need an urgent answer, you feel like you don't have time for history. But he said, you know, but it's interesting because in the medical profession, they don't feel like that, right? Medical profession is urgent. You go to the doctor, you need an answer now. But guess what? The first thing they do is take your history, try to figure out what's going on. We need to know we need to know what's your family, what you got going on in your, you know what I'm saying? You know, what's happened to you recently? Tell me the progression of how you got to this point where you're sitting now. That's absolutely relevant. I'm not going to cure you if I can't get to history. So the first thing is they create that bond. The second thing is that I think people talk about, I think part of the other reason why that's wrong is that people talk about the institution of policing in terms of that it was created for our safety, right? I think people assume that the institution is here. I mean, because harm is real. Harm happens in our community. Sexual assault happens, people shoot each other, people's getting robbed, so they assume the police are there to do it. That's the story they tell, and then we just got to make them as good as possible. So I asked that as a historical question. I said, well, I literally went to the documents, right? I said, what did the city council say the police were here to do? Who were they? Who were they here to protect? And you find out that they were not trying to protect really anybody in this room at all. That was not why the institution was ever created, and there was never a moment where they addressed that in 180 years, and you'll hear more about that. So, and in fact, when you talk about violent crime, one of the best people who talks about this is my friend Eric Calicut-Sanis. When they've done studies in a couple of cities about how police spend their time, what they found, what percentage of police time do you think is spent on violent crime? When people guess, you know what I mean? 1%. You said, yeah, so people in this room know. 1%, I saw 4%. So that means even if you believe in police are the solution, you still, you know, that means that about 4% of those 30,000 cops should have anything to do with violent crime, and I don't think they have much to do with it. So I think that there's myths about how police spend their time. So I think that, and the last thing is kind of what I said before, is that, you know, when I was talking to Ruth Wilson Gilmore, the abolitionist, and she said, the things that made us become abolitionists were that we were trying to get to the roots of why people choose violence to solve problems. That's not something the police are interested in at all. The police aren't interested in the roots of what's going on in our community and addressing those things. So these are the things I feel have to be moved out of the way so that we can put the real experts in the front.
That was an excellent breakdown. Speaking of some of the experts, I wanted to come to you, Bigger, because Dana sent us a picture today that was talking about, I think it says starting October 7th, in Brownsville, that Brownsville was a police-free zone. Yeah. And that during this time, that instead of 911 actually goes to you all, yeah, and not the police. Can you talk about one? To me, obviously, you know, there was people on the post that was mad about that. But can you talk about this? Like, how did that happen? And obviously, this is the first time. What has been your experience with designating police-free zones, and how has that contributed to the success that you've had at Brownsville and Violent South?
I just want to let y'all know this did not happen overnight. This is 5 years in the making. This is 5 years. before large contracts. This is before anybody even took a note to it. This is pandemic, pre-pandemic. This was that time. And then they started taking notice. It took an officer, Terrell Anderson. He came up with part of the idea, and we enacted it. Dana, we built the block. John J, Bebo, we came together. We're gonna put this thing in motion. He may have just been talking about it, but we're gonna actually do it. They wrote the grant, they came up with it, and inside of it, it wasn't, people misconstrue it a little bit. They think that it was a exclusion for the police. No, we included them. Remember, this is 5 years, and now we just getting but a rapport where we can communicate. Listen, we don't need you here. We want you to go all the way back. You see where that block is over there? Go all the way over there and just sit right there. We'll take it from here, and our credibility is going to speak for itself. We know the community. We know the people. We know who have mental health issues. We know who have, drug abuse, who's homeless. Let us take care of them. And it's just been putting our team to work, putting boots to ground, making sure that credibility is sound, because if the team is not credible, you can't do this type of work. There's no way, shape, form, or fashion. Nobody can go into no hood and just set up shop if they're not credible. And we had to buy in, and then of course we had to speak the language so they understand. We're not forcing you out, we're including you, but this part right here, we got this. Until we're able to teach you further how to communicate with our people, let us do this.
Can I ask one more question? Because I found out about you through We Built a Block and Dana, and I remember it was
founder members.
It was a cover story in the New York Times. Because when people think, I'm not from here, but Brownsville, I'm a hip hop head, right? I think Brownsville, I think MOP, I think Annie Up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you all had done this work where Brownsville had a murder. It was like for so many days.
Yeah.
How were you all able to do what the police were not, in terms of making Brownsville a place where it's a safer place to live now?
We could go where the police can't. We can negotiate beefs and de-escalate things that the police, they have no idea what's going on. You think you know what, when the police come, like you just said, they come after the shot is fired. They come after the stabbing. They come after the sister got abused. They come after the young boy got jumped. We already there. There's many different organizations around New York City, but Brownsville is the toughest. It's one of the when you got Brownsville, boy, you saying something, you can work anywhere. So we outside the school, we inside the projects, we going where the police can't go. We in the projects, we standing, I'm in the staircase, 1 o'clock in the morning, while Fahim rolling his blunt, and I'm talking him off the ledge. I'm over there in the house with Destiny, while she getting her hair braided, so she could go on a job interview. I'm sitting there in front of the projects while they call themselves rolling dice, or just chilling, making sure 73rd Precinct, we got them over here. We good. And that's the credibility and then the trust. So that's what we got. That's how we do it.
Jasiri,
Thank you so much.
can we just also say one other thing? It's
Yeah.
because he actually wants the community to be safe and healthy.
Wow.
And so we can also just start a baseline. The end goal is different for him.
Yes. You can come sit down. Right, no, you stay right here. Erica's gonna sit right. No, yeah, you sit here, Erica, because we already set it up. We already got the camera set up for you. Erica, you can just come on up here. Erica Ford is, and we're gonna bring Lumumba up. Don't worry. Come on, can we bring Erica for a round of applause, please? I'm gonna come to Yaritza because she has to leave shortly, and then when she leaves, our brother Lumumba's in the building. We're gonna bring Lumumba up as well. Yeah. Again, man, these are folks that really live this work. I do just wanna, if folks didn't hear what Dana said, she said part of the reason that he's successful is because he actually wants to stop the violence.
It's not what police are.
And I think that's a part, a lot of times, the people that are policing our community, that's not their interest. It's not like stopping the violence, it's maybe catching someone or whatever. Or sometimes I think what we're seeing with federal police now, we're actually seeing is federal police actually instigate violence. And so I want to come to you, Yaritza, because when you talk about Make the Road, you were working in immigrant communities with folks that are undocumented, and now we see this blitz and the operation that they did in Chicago. They actually called it the Midway Blitz, where they went into this housing project in the middle of the night, arrested 37 people, brought children outside naked on the streets with helicopters and machine guns. And so, can you just talk about, like, in the last 10 months, like, how has your organizing changed, and what ways or what things can we do to really help our immigrant and our undocumented communities and those folks?
Thank you. And can I just say a huge shout out to the two of you. I think the work that you're doing is amazing, and like it speaks highly about like the need to actually not only understand the needs of our community, but actually like be in it. And like that's something that you can teach. It's something that you can replicate. And going back to what you're saying, like, is the connecting of the dots and not forgetting about the history, but seeing it like today. We're seeing it like over and over again, and sometimes we get so overwhelmed, kind of like trying to make sense of it without actually taking a stop and seeing how we're able to learn from the things that we had to overcome, essentially. Going back to your question, Zari, I think fear has been incredible in the undocumented community. And not just undocumented, I want to say Black and brown communities across the country. Because it's the thing of like, how do we talk about policing in a broader scope? Because the example of what you're alluding to in Chicago, raiding an apartment building, putting families, ripping them off their beds, like the way that they were treated was unspeakable. But then you move to DC and you're seeing how they're using racial profiling and how Black and brown communities and folks in their own neighborhood are also being targeted. In just the sense of like, if you're speaking Spanish, if you somewhat look immigrant, then you may be subject to essentially be arrested. So like those are the little things that I think will be helpful to be able to connect the dots and not forget how other communities and have been impacted by policing in the United States.
You can't forget 26 Federal Plaza.
And you can't forget 26 Federal Plaza, and that's right. And I think something that you spoke about earlier about like, it's not like using like, oh, it's a racist cop, and maybe let's just put a Black cop actually conducting the raids. And we're seeing how ICE is now trying to lure people in and like lowering the requirements to actually staff up, and that's something that we're grappling with, like seeing a lot of our own people actually being a part of operations. And like you ask yourself, but how can you, right, like be a part of the meetings, waiting for people to get out of their court hearings to then arrest them without reading their Miranda rights? Like it's just so much, so packed that it's really hard to be able to discern. But the fear is tremendous. Like people are isolating themselves. A lot of folks are fearful of going to work, of taking their kids to school, and that's just real. Another big thing has to do with like the overspread of misinformation to some extent. Like a lot of raids get reported, but then you don't know like who's saying the right things, and so like we have to be tactful too on like ensuring that we're putting some sort of like boundaries and asking people to like take a picture, like take the plates and things of the nature so that we can actually corroborate it and ensure that people are going out. Another big thing that has shifted is that while we're paying attention and catering to those that are directly impacted, is also thinking about how we can move allies to take action. Allies meaning folks that are not vulnerable or perhaps not being impacted by what's happening right now. How we can move them to essentially put their bodies on the line, right? Like make sure that there's some sort of like human barricade almost to like bring in some protection into what you're doing, something similar of like doing neighborhood watch, like what that would look like. And like you're having it down packed in Brownsville, but just imagine what that could look like in other pockets of New York City. Like that you're having your own neighborhoods like looking after you. Like maybe it's a street vendor who can like, you know, alert if there is some sort of like ICE activity. Like things of that nature is like it encourage you. I think this moment definitely opens the Pandora box of the opportunities of different ways that we can do organizing, the different tactics that we can implement, and how we can collaborate with one another. Because what you have, I think, is amazing and beautiful. But again, going back to like, how can we lean on some of the things that they're already learning and doing, and they know that it's working, and how we can replicate it and implement it and make it, you know, blow it up essentially. What can folks do? I think the Solidarity Organizing Initiative, which is an initiative that the Action Lab has been spearheading over the last couple of months in collaboration with a number of national and state-based organizations, have been super helpful in terms of moving those that are less vulnerable to actually take action.
So the name of that again?
Yeah, Solidarity Organizing Initiative. It comes through a pledge. We launched it via the pledge a couple of months before, a couple of days prior to inauguration, asking people to put their bodies on the line. And that could mean many different ways. Engaging in neighborhood watch, engaging in mutual aid response, engaging in human change, like what we saw happen in Rochester a couple of weeks back, or what we've seen in Tennessee, where people literally like lock their arms around a vehicle or lock their arms around a house to prevent ICE from making arrests of people that they were looking for or they suspected that were immigrants. Like things of that nature is what we need. We need solidarity. We need people to be trained, and that is what the initiative is trying to do, really training people about not only the history of immigration, how to engage in nonviolent actions and activities, but really like politicizing them, because we have to go back to history. We have to understand what happened and the different ways, not only in the United States, but in other pockets of the world where have gone through authoritarian regimes and they were able to overcome it. So how can we bring some of those learnings and actually adapt it in the United States in this very moment? So I encourage folks to, if you're coming with an organization or if you're just an individual, look us up, Solidarity Organizing Initiative, sign the pledge. You will be invited to trainings, and then you will be moved into actions in different pockets. Like Chicago is doing a bunch of actions right now. We know folks in Portland are doing a bunch of actions too, New York City too. So all of us are really paying attention and really thinking about what is that rapid response moment is going to look like, what is our plan, because we have to be in arm's length and cohesive on how to respond, because that is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to intimidate us, they're trying to isolate us, and they're using fear and overreach as a way to essentially flex their muscle.
Wow, that was so amazing. Yeah, I saw in Chicago, people were actually following ICE and like honking their horn and like literally following them around. Man, Erica. So I wanted everybody to just talk a little bit about what brought them to this moment. I mean, you know, when I see you and think about you, I just think about peace. And you know, you've represented, you've been this force, not just in New York, but nationally. That's synonymous with like peace in our community. I'm gonna hand you this mic because that mic is a little bit low. We wanted folks to hear you. Can you just talk about like what brought you to this moment, and you know, where do you see your work now as we're entering in this time where it seems like violence is at a low in our communities because of work that you've led, but we're getting a different response from the federal government.
So, peace everybody. Y'all can blame Trump for me being late. Just blame him anyway. I was listening to the young lady and they took $4 million from us, 2 from that we had already had and
Wow.
already executed, and then when we were going to get, they just ended the whole thing, right? Now they put the grants back out, but what they did was they put a clause that says if you get the grant, you have to cooperate with ICE.
Oh, shit.
And so a lot of people don't read the fine print. So they're going to apply for these federal grants and not realize that it's mandatory that you cooperate with ICE, that you let them know if there's any immigrants that work or you serve. And so when you talk about the federal government right now, who is controlling? Somebody turned it up. What's that mean?
That was just lean into it.
The federal government is executing us on many levels. And it's funny, I looked at Lumumba when you said that when you think of me, you think of peace. Because, the only fights that I've ever had is with the police, right? What got me into this work is that they were, like what we see now is not how they used to be. Like, we would fight on sight. And what would happen is people would have to stop what they're doing, come to the jail, get me out of jail, go to court, and I was not only depleting myself, but depleting the people around me. And one of the things that I said is I had to change how I responded to them. And when I changed how I responded to them, somebody doesn't hear that they have something playing.
Yeah, somebody has something playing very loud. Because it has to be turned down. That's my phone.
Oh, that's what kids do.
Oh, that's-
It's their space. They run the world without a doubt.
All right, that makes me feel
That's what they do. You in my space. It's all right. The relationship changed. They didn't stop the harassment of me, but what they did stop is, people didn't have to go to jail. They didn't have to get me out. I didn't have to go to jail. But I began to change how they related to us as a community. We then got, when you talk about the co-producing of public safety, give it up to Bevo and the crew, those things, and he's talked about it took a long time, and he said 5 years. Shout out to Nuke, who had me watching while I wasn't here. It was way more than 5 years, right? Because they were able to come into an environment where we had the police commissioner direct his police to work with us at a different kind of way, right? He had them, where in my community, I have a chief of streets. And so, as Bigger was saying, he said, y'all sit right out there, right? All the way out there, and we got this. That's the same way that we were able to define the relationship between police and community. And what we were able to do, Dana was saying that you want to stop the killings, and what that would insinuate is that some of them don't, right? And what we know that there's a system of policing, as you talked about the history, but there's also a system of human beings, right? And I'm not, this is a very thin line conversation about because even when she was saying that, I said, do we have people go and be part of ICE so that they can let us know what's going on and where they're deploying and different things? And I say all of that because when I first started, I wanted to be a crooked cop. I literally wanted to be a crooked cop. I was going to go and take the police test so that I could let these guys who went to jail and came home know that the police were coming and they were targeting them, were going to raid them. And luckily, instead of that, I went to the December 12th rally upstate in Goshen County, and I met the likes of Viola Plummer, Sonny Carson, Louis Farrakhan, Alumbe Braff, Coltrane Shimaranga, and my work became something else. That day, December 12, 1987, I made a commitment to, stop police brutality, change the conditions of our people, and I haven't looked back. But peace definitely wasn't what they aligned with me when they had my picture in their book, and they would say, get her first, because she was gonna incite the rest of the people. So, and I say all of that is why I had to change how I responded to them, because I was their target. And if I kept giving them me, we couldn't do our work. Because I'm stopping the rally, because now everybody's coming to the precinct, right? And so strategic planning is needed more now than ever. Strategic, because what we are seeing as they indicted Tish James today, right? And the other gentleman who was the head of the FBI, who they're, we see, and what they did with the grants, and what they're doing with nonprofits trying to take their status, and what they're doing with global entry taking people's status. We are in a war. We are in a war. And most of the people that voted for Trump are the people that we are talking about in Brownsville and South Jamaica, the people that we serve who have no consciousness. And so we have to raise the consciousness of our people, right? In a very serious kind of way. Because I like what you said. When you go into the doctor's office, they want your history. We need to start knowing people's histories maybe before we give them jobs, working with us, or we're dating them, right? Or we're inviting them to come hang out with us, because we can't win if our people are in the blockage of us even fighting the enemy, right? And that's what I'm saying. I was an unconscious distraction. And so we have to know, what are we trying to achieve right now? Because I might go out there and get into a fight with this one cop, right? And what happens? I go to jail, whatever, but that doesn't allow us to win. And so I got in this because I came to an event just like this. What they were talking about, it sparked my interest, and I've been doing the work ever since, and most of my work was alongside, we were young back then, neither one of us had gray hair, and we were out here in Brooklyn doing a lot of work around the police.
I had a question, but she mentioned our people getting in our way. If you listen to the Empire City podcast, or if you're familiar with when it dropped, right? They say timing is everything. So the Empire City podcast, the untold origin of the NYPD came out the same day that a mayor was indicted. A mayor named Erica Adams. You sent me a lot of information yesterday about some of the things that Eric Adams had been up. I did not know. I guess maybe I'm not in New York, a former police officer. And it's interesting, the podcast talks about the last time a police officer was mayor, it was also a very corrupt officer. So can you talk about the podcast as it relates to, I guess, police being in control and kind of our people maybe getting in our way?
Right. Well, yes, and thank you for coming, showing up. I know I imagine you have a lot of things you could be doing. You and Brother Lumumba, I really appreciate what you've shared. You know, one thing I wanted to bring just to connect it with the show on the immigration side, you know, as was said earlier, I mean, they put 170 billion over the next 4 years or so into ICE. ICE is going to be the largest law enforcement agency in the country. And as we were saying, it is a problem because you see the recruitment lines, it's a lot of black and brown people. I know someone who had the nerve to say to my face that they sent a family member because they're offering $50,000 bonuses, right? So that's an issue where we really do have to be clear on. And we talk about that. Episode 7 talks about that specific strategy of called ethnic policing, of recruiting black and brown police, and where that started, because it goes all the way back. But I just wanted to say that when it comes to resisting this, what's happening now, and these kidnappings, I was just out at the Global National Nurses Assembly in San Francisco, a very militant organization, the labor union of nurses. And they were talking about how this affects their work. And one thing that came up in the conversation, it was a panic about what do we do right now? People talked about some of these networks that we have, and we're watching ICE and all those other things, the crucial importance of that strategy. And that in a way connects back to Empire City as well, because one of the reasons why I wanted to start in the 19th century with the show was I wanted to start at a time when black people had no illusions that the police were on their side. It was like no one would even imagine to think that they were. And you had to rely on saving yourselves. And what you see, if you listen to what David Ruggles would do, David Ruggles was one of the first sort of like full-time black activists in New York. That's what Mariam Kaba says she calls him. He would write in his paper and say to the people, this is what's going on, this is the lookout, don't let them in, let people know what your rights are. And they would have to patrol the police to protect it. So there's a way in which we can learn from that, and we're literally having to apply those tactics now. But one thing that came up at the Global Nurses of Solidarity is they said, those strategies won't be enough of us just kind of watching the police. There has to be an institutional response. And this is where labor and the places where we control the institutions has to come into play. So the nurses were actually saying, some of those nurse unions are actually using their labor power to say to the hospital administration, you have to push back. And if you don't push back, we're not going to work. Of course, we're not going to abandon our patients, but you're going to lose money. We're going to hurt you in the way that we know what it matters. You have to make it clear, like ICE can't come in here because they're actually doing violence, right? Another just data point I want to point out, we talked about who actually keeps us safe. And as Yuritsa was saying with the fear, the data is coming in and saying people in immigrant communities, people in the black communities are not going to the domestic violence shelter now. They're not going to seek the places where they need to be safe. Some of them might not even go to the hospital because they're scared of being kidnapped. And I just think that contradiction is crucial to point out because all this is being done in the name of safety, right? So, but yeah, I think episode 7 of the podcast does deal with, this strategy. And one thing that surprised me in the show, because people always ask me, they say, when you did this history, did you just know the whole time the police were going to be bad? And I said, no, there was things that surprised me. Black activists in the 1880s actually wanted there to be some black police because they didn't have the benefit of the history we have now. And some of them said, maybe if we had black police, they would treat us better. They were optimistic about that at that point. And they pushed actually to try to recruit some police into the force. But of course, they pushed back on that. And then once the first black officer got in, Sam Battle, he was clear that his job was to protect white officers from the black community. But the other thing that we do is we go all the way to the Philippines War, and we talk about how it was actually first the U.S. military that realized, if we can put sort of Filipino police in place and tell people it's for you, it's for your community, they will do the work that we can't even do as the army. And literally those people like Francis Vincent Green came back and led the NYPD. And they're still unleashing that strategy today. So this is tricky, and I just want to end on this note to say that it's tricky because when you have a police force of 30,000 and 170 billion, that means it's going to be our families are going to be in these institutions. I got some cousins and stuff like that who is in the police academy, and I'm sure somebody somewhere in their family, I'm not the only one. And how do we have the clarity to talk about what the institution does, right? Because I think when there's people that we know, then people get sometimes confused. They're like, well, no, but this person is cool. But how do we? But when fascism is on you right now, we can't afford to be confused. So I just wanted to say that.
Powerful. I know, Richard, you have to leave. I did want to ask you one question before you go, and then we're going to bring up our brother Lumumba. There's an election coming up here. Have you seen, because of what we have seen happen because of this past election, have you seen people like more interested in participating in the process? Are you seeing people really thinking about in these communities, like, what are ways, because I think you talked about, like, it's almost like we're on a defensive, and our main goal is like defend and protect. Are you seeing folks think about what are some offensive strategies and things we can do to really push back? And do people see like the election as possibly one of them?
I mean, I think we're definitely trying to connect the dots and like remind people, because the two of you mentioned a very important point. Like, oftentimes, like, our own people like voted for Trump. Like, I have family members that voted for Trump, and now they're like, holy cow, we did that. As they're seeing what's coming down the pipeline. So it definitely goes back to the need to do more community education, definitely. And also just talking about people just being more alert about like really listening to their campaign promises and actually engaging in community conversations and like pushing forward for like things that we want to bring into our own communities. And the other thing too that we hope that we're able to figure out how to get there is also how we ensure that those that are able to vote actually cast their vote, just because they don't like the candidates, but actually like sit with the consequences of actually not casting your vote. Because we saw that now in this current administration, like people they didn't like neither of the candidates, and therefore they just wanted it to stay home. And now they're like, I should have at least gone and casted the vote. So there's definitely some pockets where they're like already trying to understand, but still it begs the question on how much more work we can do on the advocacy side just to ensure that, again, we're helping people connect the dots and ensuring that as much as possible we're being forthcoming about like the protections that our community needs, and just being open and honest about it, so the candidates actually take us seriously.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. We want to bring up our brother Lumumba Bandele, who is a longtime activist, organizer. Yeah, let's give a round of applause. Currently the interim director of the Campaign for Police Reform in New York. We talked a little bit about Lumumba, like what brought us to this work. I'm gonna tell you, I thought about you when our sister passed, our sister Shada Shakur, our ancestor, and I just thought about, the work that you've done, Malcolm X grassroots movement. You were somebody that when I came into this work as an artist, had already had this, really, powerful career as an organizer in our community, respected and loved. Really, you and your wife. I mean, y'all are doing big things. So can you talk about, one, what brought you to this work, but also like, how are you looking at this moment? And what are some ways that we can, and how are you and your organization like organizing to help our communities in this moment?
Thank you. Peace, everybody. My apologies for being late. I, told Jasiri, I was like, I actually have another event. I don't know if I can do this. Like, no, please come, please come, please come. So when he asked me to come, I can't say no. So I'm here, and my apologies for being late, but I wanted to make sure I arrived. And welcome to Bed-Stuy, y'all. I'm home. So I walked here from home. So welcome to those of y'all who are not from here. A few blocks down the Armory on Garvey between Putnam and Jefferson used to be my political home. Before that building, there was another building on 10 Claver Place. I come out of an organization called The East. I'm a child of the Black Liberation Movement. My parents created the first contemporary Black independent school that's not faith-based, called Uhuru Sasa Shule, which is Swahili for Freedom Now School. That armory was my school. The work was instilled in us as children. Till this day, I'm 53. I have never pledged allegiance to this country. The pledge that we did every day at Uhuru Sasa Shule was pledging our commitment to Black liberation. Every morning, every afternoon when we left. The songs that we sung wasn't the Star Spangled Banner, it was Praise the Red, the Black, and the Green. I'm trying to give you a picture of how I got here. So I'm a result of my parents. And similarly with Monifa. Monifa's father was a Panther, she's a Panther Cub. And so this really is a result of being told since a child that whatever you do, whatever it is, you have to make sure you are doing something to contribute to the liberation of our people. Whatever it is. If you are a carpenter, you have a role to play. If you are a poet, you have a role to play. If you're an educator, you have a role to play, whatever it is. And that actually is a part of, I consider the Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, tradition of organizing. Everybody got a role to play. So in this particular moment, having been working with the Malcolm X grassroots movement I did the math, I was like, damn, it's 30 years now. I joined MXG in 94, right? So over 30 years, we recognize that there has been some shifts. And we're in a very new moment right now. And I argue with people who say, oh, we've been here before. I'm like, I don't think so. I actually don't think so. When I talk to my elders, the folks who come out of the Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, and other stuff, even they say, nah, this ain't the same. Because when the repression was the way it was in the 60s, when COINTELPRO was at its height, and we were literally at war, like for real war, right? And we actually had an army. I'm not being euphemistic, I'm not being hyperbolic. We had an army that was protecting Black folks, y'all. They were called the Black Liberation Army, right? And when we had an army, we also had a movement that was supporting them. We had an apparatus that allowed for people to know what was happening. We don't have that right now. What we are losing ground on is the narrative war. Think about this. Just 5 years ago, we had the entire country, if not sane, considering this concept, this idea of defunding police. That was only 5 years ago, y'all. Now you're hard pressed to get anybody to say that out loud. The lesson is, we have to do more than just popularize these concepts and notions. We have to get people to understand in the most clearest way what it actually means and why it's important and why it can't be just a hashtag or a slogan. We are losing the narrative war. And that's most important because you can't organize people if they actually don't believe what it is you're telling them. I forget who said it, some white guy, but it literally is for organizers, rule. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Your strategy can be on point, but if you're not able to shift the culture of a people, it's not going to mean much. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we're trying to shift the culture, and that's a part of shifting the narrative. Communities United for Police Reform, where I'm the interim executive director, is a coalition that we started about 13 years ago when we decided that we were going to do something that was not going to be reactionary but proactive. We were going to create a strategy to change the laws in New York City. We were going to create a strategy to be able to try to prevent some of the police misconduct, harassment, and killings of our people. And so we decided that we were going to pull together some legislators, some lawyers, and we were going to use the tools of litigation and legislation to try to mitigate the impact of policing in our communities. And we were successful at using those tools. We filed the Floyd versus New York City lawsuit, which changed the whole concept of racial profiling nationwide. People identify that as the case that did that. We filed Bandelli versus the NYC. That was cop watch when we got arrested, literally 3 blocks from here. 3 blocks from here, the court had confirmed that videotaping the police is constitutionally protected, right? We were able to create laws now that created a independent oversight body of the NYPD that never existed before. Now here are a bunch of young people. I don't know how young we were, it was 13 years ago, so I still had a little bit of gray hair, not as much as Erica, but just a little. And people were telling us that will never happen. This is the NYPD, y'all. You can't do that. There's never been any oversight authority that's not a part of the NYPD. That's never happened. You won't be able to do that. We did it. We did a number of other things. We created legislation that would pass that called for now the police to document when they stop people, where they stop people, and why. We created legislation that now requires the police to give you a card, right? Those are all bills that we crafted and we were able to get through. All of that. And we have not been able to stop the police from harassing and killing us. There's lessons in that, y'all. Those interventions were meaningful, historic, but they were not enough. We're losing the narrative war. People are not understanding what we mean when we say we keep us safe, right? It's true, 100%. We just heard some of the testimony of the brother here. We just heard from Yaritza what they're doing. It's without a question. I live, like I said, right over here, around the corner from 79th Precinct. If the police kept us safe, I should live on the safest block in Brooklyn. That is not the case. When we started doing our Cop Watch program in the 77th and 79th precincts, what we learned very quickly, began to ask people, look, well, why'd you call the police in the first place? They said, well, my boyfriend, he keep going upside my head. My father comes home and he beats my mom, all this. So we realized the number one reason, there was a bunch, but the most prominent reason was gender violence, domestic violence, interpartner violence. And so we began to work with Connect NYC, shout out to Q, sending a whole lot of healing vibes to that brother, to be able to actually send people to them for support and services, literally. Outside spending like 2 hours with people who are fighting with their partner, and I'm on the phone with Q trying to de-escalate some shit, right? The idea is that we have to be crystal clear about the very specific things that we need to be able to get people to understand and really take in about how we keep us safe. We're losing the narrative war. The fact that people are lining up to join this new wave of stormtroopers that we now call ICE. We're losing the narrative war. As much as we're in this room and we're on the same page, when we step out of here, people got a totally different reality. Now, and I'm from a school of organizing where I like y'all, but I don't want to be in the same room if we all singing the same song. That means I'm not doing my job. I'm not doing my job. I want to be able to shift people's thinking. I want to be able to increase the ranks of folks who actually are going to be singing the same song. But if we're going to be doing this, I'm not interested in that. So I'm really glad to hear that people are looking at and exploring and experimenting with new ways to get us to win back the narrative war, because as organizers, our job is to win the hearts and minds of our people. Right? We work with lawyers, their job is to change the law, defend all these things, legislators to create laws. All of that will mean nothing if we do not have the hearts and minds of our people. That is our job. That is priority number one. And so we're trying.
Damn, give it up for that. I felt like I was in a class for I'm just listening. So I want to come. So I have really a question for the panel, because when you mentioned the narrative war, obviously I thought about the work that you're doing with Empire City, but I also thought about like hip hop. You know, when I think of Erica, I think of hip hop. Erica will start rapping and freestyle like she is hip hop to the core. You, my brother, this is hip hop. But
Erica has never beat a Bebo member in a freestyle battle.
I slaughtered him. Look at the videotape.
Okay, we got some rap beef up here. But but it seems to me in this moment like hip hop has kind of been silent. Not as strong in terms of I haven't really saw like a real, or am I missing it? So like just breaking off of that narrative, what are some ways? And I'm gonna start with you, Chinch, and I want us to go around. What are some ways that we can win back that narrative war? And while we're answering this last question, we do want to like if anybody has questions that you want to ask in the audience. We want to open up. So this will be our last question. We'll open it up to folks in the audience, and we'll wrap it up. Man, brother, you're the professor of media. What can we do? What can we do to win this narrative war, my brother?
Well, can we?
He's not winning his narrative.
Yeah, I'm not winning mine. Can we turn it down a little bit?
already told you, this whole world.
Sorry. By the way, shout out to my daughter and my wife, Sonica. But yo, it's really
So
loud.
one of the things about organizing and working with young people is
Yes.
you have to work in the conditions.
You have to work. Thank
doing
you.
it.
Just keep doing it.
Doing the sound,
Don't get. Just keep.
moving.
Thank you for this. I appreciate that.
You take care of that later.
Exactly. I think one thing I actually want to get to something that Bigger was telling me about what the work looks like in terms of, and I don't know what can be spoken on, but in terms of what's going to happen tomorrow at the BSA. You know what I mean? But yeah, whatever could be said. But because that really gets into the weeds. I will say this. I was informed. I think my journey to make narrative documentary about history started with hip hop because hip hop to me, artists are the best storytellers. I just feel that way. I say that as a writer, as somebody with a PhD who studies literature. Nobody tells this, you know what I'm saying? Like I just think about all the stories and so many of the bars. It's just crazy, right? And in fact, I remember even part of what was in my dissertation were stories that Jasiri was telling, right? About Jordan Miles, and the way he was using hip hop to narrate some of these situations. I think what we see with hip hop now, I kind of, on one hand, when I listen to some of the music that's coming out and I see the lack of speaking of hip hop, of what's going on in Palestine, the lack of engaging with this fascism and cats is just still talking about whatever they're talking about, it does disturb me. But I also see it as a change in material conditions that people are living through, right? So, there's a way where sometimes I talk to some people, brothers of my age, and they'll be like, oh, these kids ain't talking about nothing. I'm like, you should listen to what they are talking about in drill music. What are they saying in the drill music? They are telling you about some conditions that exist for real on the streets. Now, you might feel like they're glorifying it or they're not talking about it, but the key part of the battle is to listen to them, though. You know what I mean? And I do think that that's how I'm trying to approach it rather than to sort of be judgmental. So that's one thing. I think there's a lot in it if you listen. The other thing I would say is that, the other part I would say though is we've seen, because we have a hip hop industry, one of the mistakes I think that got made is we conflated hip hop industry with hip hop culture. The industry has always been about promoting whatever the particular thing is. There was a brief moment, like a few years, where the industry decided that consciousness was going to be out there, and all of a sudden that was it. Conscious hip hop was out there, and then the industry shifted and said, "Oh, we like Black Death better." You know what I mean? And it's kind of been what the thing has been from now. We like materialism, we like capitalism better. But that doesn't mean that there's not artists who are out there doing it. So I would just say there are, there's Palestinian rappers. And I mean, you could say, well, that's not getting out enough, and I fully agree with what Lumumba said, we're losing the narrative war, but I'm not going to say they don't matter. Right. There's a lot of rappers out there doing the work, putting the culture in, doing the stuff, maybe not getting the views that everybody else is getting, and that work matters. And if we say it doesn't matter, we're participating in validating the industry over the culture. So I don't want to do that. But
Speaking of which, I don't know what you can say about some of the alliances that are being made, but I would love for you to talk about that.
Well, if anybody, they know about Brownsville. I hate to say it, but we're known for the historic beef. The woman of Chuck. We know that. So we've been working real hard. It's real delicate, we're walking on eggshells with it, but it's happening. We're trying to bring both sides together. Tomorrow's probably going to be the first time ever that you'll see a member from the other side of the Brownsville Safety Alliance. We're making that happen, and you'll see it. You'll see it. I don't want to blow it up, but he's a pretty popular drill rapper in Brownsville, and he's going to be with another popular drill rapper in Brownsville at the Alliance.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's some narrative.
On the IG Live.
If y'all ever get a chance, look at Sosa Geek stuff, man. Sosa Geek was at the Alliance learning how to stop the bleed. If anybody's familiar with who Sosa Geek is, and that was a historic day at the Brownsville Safety Alliance too. So just look that up when y'all get a chance.
So he was on Instagram as he was getting trained in Stop the Bleed training and Test Kit training, and he's on his IG live feed as Sosa Geek, as the drill rapper, as the person that is being gang policed, learning life-saving techniques, and then promoting that and informing his audience. His audience, wait, who's his audience? The folks that who want to know about test strips and Narcan and Stop the Bleed training.
Well, that's really powerful because it's like again, that's being community rooted, that's being trusted, that's all those things you said before. Because of that, and because these young brothers know, these drill brothers know, like, you've been doing this work for so long, you're rooted. It's not about a moment, right? It's about really the community. You're able to bring those brothers into the fold. So, man, and utilizing those brothers to really stop the violence. That's very, very powerful. Man, can we give it up for this work, man? Wow. Eric, I know you've engaged a lot of hip hop artists as well. I mean, everybody know you. You know what I'm saying? So you've engaged folks as well. What are some ways you think? I mean, when I think of you, I think of orange being that color nationally. When it comes to like gun violence, we wearing orange. Coming from your work, what are some things that we can do to kind of just echo the movement to kind of win that narrative war back?
So I think one of the things that we have to do is go younger and be outside more. I know I'm 60. I almost lost my life in this work. Some of the things that I want to do, I just physically can't do. I think we need to be outside more. And we got to talk to people more. We got to engage with people more. A lot of people do these rallies and, they go around and have big events with the choir. But let's take those events to the blocks, right? Let's take them to the schools. Let's take them to the, parks when they're playing. But we have to be consistent in just being outside. One of the things about when we were young and organizing, we had the Black Watch movement, right? X-Clan. And we were the Black Consciousness movement, and it was the Malcolm X grassroots movement. And so we was young people who were in the streets, rapping. We wasn't backing down, so like Lumumba was talking about the laws that he got in place, but we got, the soldiers in place. Like, no, you're not doing that over here. We would stop the police from moving on people physically. When the girl that was talking before about wrapping around and making human, we did that, right? We did that. But what they did was criminalization is a business, right? It is a business. And so they need, quote, criminals to run their business. And so they couldn't have us be successful. Drill rap is not an accident. It is intentional. Because they have to control the minds of the people. They can't create no messiahs for them to follow, right? That's the game ain't shit switching. They're just using it in different ways. And so when you, unfortunately, by the time we win these drill rappers over to doing something, they already got RICO cases. So all of the ones we work with, they in jail right now. After they turn their life, because there's an intentionality. They trying to criminalize me. And I want to say it everywhere I go. They're trying to say that I am running a criminal enterprise. They go to the people in the jails who were in my program and ask, Erica, she knows it what y'all are doing, right? She knows that you're doing. Like they're trying to criminalize me, right? Because this is what they have to do. So when we see people, you talk about the narrative change, this to me, right? And this is a very thin, all of these conversations are thin lines, right? Because you're absolutely right. The police, they have a system that is fascist. Their system. But they exist in my community, so I have to work with them. Because if I don't work with them, that means every one of my young people don't have a home. There's no one standing in between them and the police. Right? And so, and then, but they'll call me a snitch because they'll see me working with the police. I have to have the skin to say, I don't care. Because I know who I am. And so when you talk about narrative change, some people are just too scared. They want a job. They want a check. They want to be known because now there's social media and everybody's watching you. And so you have to do your work to get watches, not to get results. Because the things that get results, they don't let you see it. So when you talk about the music, who controls the music? Yeah. Right? That is in some of them own private prisons. Right? And so these are the same kind of conversations. And some people might have thought we won, right? And I know for me, we need more resources because we don't want to work for free. And that's the thing that also happens, that people think in order to do revolutionary work, you have to have no money. You gotta look broke, you gotta be broke, you gotta, I'm not trying to be broke. But we are not supporting us. We don't have a bank that's gonna fund us. Right? We're not working together. One of the things that I did with the city is I made them fund all of the pieces of our work. I didn't go there and say, fund life camp. I said, fund this system. So this system includes the music. It includes the gang work. It includes the therapeutic work. It includes the advocacy work. It includes the school work. It includes the legal work. It includes the hospital work. Right? Because they only wanted to fund one piece. I'm like, nah, that's not enough. And it's still not enough. And I hope when this new mayor comes in, that they understand that when we talk, they're not, see, because when you say defund the police, when you say people don't want to say defund the police, because when you say defund the police, who's got your back? I had to lay off 8 people, including myself. Right? Because we don't have the resources because of these funding cuts. And people aren't funding us. Right? And so most people had to go get a job. So when you talk about what happened, I can't say on my job the things that you want me to say.
True.
Because I'm going to lose my job. And then you see what they came in and took all of them people out their job. Matter of fact, we're not giving you, to about 5 years, we also controlled all of the money. It was funding everything. Movement for Black Lives, right? Black Lives Matter all over the world. They snatched it. So we have to be self-sufficient. We have to be clear on who our enemy is and what we're organizing around. Right? And then we have to go young. We're dying from the food that we're eating. they control the entire system that oversees our life. And so they're feeding us poison. They have us under stress. I have a 31-year employee that died 2 weeks ago from a heart attack. Right, so all of this is relative. When we had COVID in the United States, our people died at an alarming rate because of the premorbidities. Because we are not healthy. We're not healthy physically, mentally, emotionally. And so what we have to do is go back to the old school, put the phone down, talk to people in their face, organize the block, organize the community, organize the city, organize the nation, organize the state, and just keep organizing in a real sense of way, because what we gonna do? Now you want me to rap? Mic check. I can't even
Let me give it up, man. Oh, wow. An amazing group. Do we have any questions? Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask? Bro, if you could just shout it out and I'll just re-say it on the microphone.
So me?
Yes, sir.
Peace and love. My name is Rashid John. On behalf of Black Gotham.
Shout out Black Gotham.
But Black Gotham is actually working on this project as well, so shout out to Kamal and Black Gotham.
And I also have a nonprofit called the Green Campaign.
Did you say the green campaign, the color? Okay.
One of the programs we launched in 2021, 2022 was Hudson Grants, the St. Francis College, to create a pipeline to get kids in the inner city that's stuck in a drill situation into college. We utilized the amount of money that's being spent on young people on this island as a way of opening up conversation around creating enrollment slots for kids that are willing to turn their goals gun, or kids who are actually fighting non-violent positions right now. The question that I have, though, you're to me, I was from the brand recently, like, what organization you like? I like that, and shout out to you because of what you're doing. My question, though, is, when it comes to funding, when it comes to nonprofits, like, I'm a part of a new wave of reparationists, conscious, we make content, like we take heed of the lessons from the OGs and work that you all have been doing. But we see that there still hasn't been an economic fix in the conditions. Right? I grew up in the middle of the crack era in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Go to that neighborhood, it's gentrified, but it's still bad. Right? My dad, so business and boys were taking the Rockaway, so we were taking the Rockaway right now. Still bad. So the socioeconomic conditions of our community have not changed. It's just new generations finding ways to get out. So my question is, when new artists, creatives, individuals who want to do the community work, want to get involved in the nonprofit side and start building out grassroots institutions, what are some of the thoughts that you have when we reach these barriers of, oh, you can get a government grant, but that money is not up front, right? You got to go raise $50,000 and then spend $50,000 and then get that money back. At some point. You started it without some money. So what are some of the thoughts that you guys have? And I'm part of a really good network, and we trying to figure out how to make these things work. Because a lot of it is not ambition, it's not effort, it's not intellect. We went to school, got the information, know the knowledge, but it comes back to the funding. It comes back to how we're able to navigate in a community where we have to pour in, the way we need to be on a block there, but we don't have all the necessary funding that we need when it comes to institutionalizing the changes that we need to see.
I'm going to start with Lumumba. I know you have some thoughts. I have some thoughts as well. I'm going to start with Lumumba on this question.
So we're in a really interesting and historic moment right now. We are looking at the beginning of the deconstruction of the nonprofit industrial complex. There was a report that came out from this conservative right-wing think tank where they're going after all of these organizations that received money from the Soros Foundation, saying that they were doing, supporting domestic terrorism, they were hating police, and they were responsible for, this is the language they're using, the riots in 2020. Understand what happened in 2020. That was the largest protest movement in the history of the United States. The New York Times said 25 million people that year alone participated in some protest. So they're using what was built in 2020 as an excuse to go after the institutionalization of the movement that existed at that time. And they're going after the foundations. Listed in that report was my organization. Listed in that report was the organization that I am on the board of, the Center for Constitutional Rights. Listed in that report was the Arab Association of New York, Dream Defenders, all of these organizations that are listed explicitly. This is like a new COINTELPRO thing. What that tells us, however, and we've had this issue before, but it's on steroids now. Nonprofits function as a way to be able to take donations that people want to give, and they can get tax-exempt write-offs for it, and that allows people to actually get support resources to do the work. They are now going after people's tax-exempt status, which would make it difficult, if not impossible, for you to actually receive tax-exempt donations. I'm going a long way of saying that we have to think creatively about how we resource our movements. It ain't gonna be nonprofit status. The C3 thing is about to be a wrap. We have to think creatively about what is this new container that we have to create that's going to allow us to resource our movements. That has to be the objective, right? Not to create a structure that we're gonna get, a president here. Like, sometimes we get distracted. What is the work that we're trying to do? Form follows fashion, right? What is it we want to be able to do? We create a container that will allow that to happen. And this is not just domestically. This is internationally, right? Civil society, if you do international work, civil society is about to take a huge hit. They're coming after people who are doing the social justice, human rights work. And they're going to it by way of the funders. So we have to figure out another way to resource our work. I just had to lay off 2 people a month and a half ago. It's not sustainable right now. And I don't know that it will ever go back to what it once was.
Yeah, I run an organization too. Same, had to lay off 3 people this year. And just to echo you, and I just want to speak briefly before I take it to air. I agree with everything you're saying. I just met with the president of a foundation. It's one of the biggest foundations in Pittsburgh. And just to put it in perspective, last year, our organization gave over $700,000 back into our community to Black businesses and to creatives of color. That's 1 year. So one of the things we try to do is get the resources and put it back into the community. For those that don't know Pittsburgh, normally every year Pittsburgh is the poorest inner city Black community in the country. A lot of people don't know that. And so for us, that money is vital. But like you said, they're coming for us. But what this president of this huge foundation said was that if they can label anybody they give money to as a terrorist organization, they can then take that foundation's ability to give any donation ever again. They can, in effect, take that foundation off of the giving map. And so, I just was like, wow. As I'm talking, I'm like, wow. I know somebody that worked for a billionaire who had a foundation. He was a billionaire, he started a foundation. He sunsetted his foundation because he felt it was too risky for him to be publicly giving in a foundation. He said, I'm gonna shut this and give privately. So this is what and I know Andrew probably has from the action, this is kind of what the situation is. So we do have to come up with creative ways. One of the things that we do, because certain things that we're good at, so we actually have contracts. So we're kind of a, what they call a hybrid. So we're getting grants in, but one of the things that really saved us this year is a contract for graphic design work, marketing work, because that's one of the things that we're good at. as an organization. So we do have to approach this in a different way than just thinking these foundations are going to come in and give us some bread. I'll pass to Erica if she wants to say a couple of things on this as well.
The only thing I would say is that you said you're a group of artists, and Lamoma said everybody has a role. And so the artists should be artists and get paid for their art and whatever form it is, and then donate back to, the work. Because everybody has a role, and sometimes you don't need to let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
I'm learning so much, and this is crucial because this is the economic infrastructure that supports our work. And I actually think that a lot of people on the left, to your point, I'm so glad you brought this issue, because where you started, we don't really understand, I think, have a program to address people's immediate economic needs. And I think that, like when I look at some of the people that I work with in progressive communities, we have, I think, rightfully very critical things to say about things like crypto, or people who want to look at the earn your leisure and flip the house. But what they don't understand is that for a lot of our people, that's like you giving people agency. That's like something I feel like I can do now. Now we have to have an analysis of capitalism and the way that those schemes exploit us, what's going on with this. But the question is, it's like, what are we offering people concretely in the community, right? In terms of economics, are we come at people who's really dealing with real needs and say, oh, well, in Biden's bill, there was a cut. People ain't trying to hear that. It's not a program. So I think this is a real important question. One thing I'll say is I'm on the board of a magazine of Black politics and culture called Hammer and Hope. And we're also addressing this question, and one of the things that we're trying to figure out is, because we receive funding from different sources, our solution has been to try to really make our membership more robust. We've tried to create some tiers of membership where people can get in there and put in some change every month. And we have had explosive growth by just announcing that, but also saying, well, what do people want to do? Like you said, what do you want to do? People want to come together? Let's come together, but you got to become a member to come together. And I think and that has allowed us to sort of gain hundreds of new members who are all paying though. And then when we have a membership strategy where your organization is funded by thousands of members, there's a magazine called Truth Out that's funded like that. They have incredible membership. They're actually protected from some of these tactics. And one other thing I just want to say on that is some of these tactics of destroying civil society, it's not just in the United States, as Brother Lumumba was saying. It's like Viktor Orban, who's like the president of Hungary. One of the things, I was studying this website that everybody, if you want to go down the nerdy rabbit hole on this, called Reactionary International. And they look at the global movement of fascism. And what he said is, Orban, when he was younger, he relied on the nonprofit structure. So here you have, right, a sort of leader who, when he was younger, he relied on higher education. He relied on nonprofit structures. He saw how powerful those structures are in forming people's consciousness. So then now that he's now a fascist leader, he knows that's what they have to rip down. They got to tear it down. And they're intentionally tearing this stuff down. So,
I mean, what price can we put on this, the work that this brother's doing? Like, what price, can you put on human life? I mean, again, and so how we figure out how to fund that, you know what I'm saying? Fund up, you got people over here, they're saving lives. So we do have to figure out a way internally where we make sure that's. Does anybody else have a question? Any other questions? My brother?
I'm always thinking about the economic structure. Because I work for Life Care, my outreach worker, spirit balance before that. And I understand that you can talk what you want, but the immediate need is the thing that we have to address.
Yes.
Right? Because that's going to be the difference. He's going to take this gun and do something.
Right.
Wolf robbing, stay robbing until they start selling drugs. They learn a different way to have make money. Not that much risk, right? And then from there, he learns to do something else. So in our communities, what I hate the most is we go to all the stores that do the things.
Yeah.
Spend all our money everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I got the Jordans up there, everybody fly. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? myself, right? So you can't tell me you don't got $25 that you can put in this pot globally for us. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to go anywhere. We need that one or two, maybe five people, right?
Yes.
That have that treasury goal that says and puts out a number every month, like how a lot of us do.
Right.
This is what we got. And we have to delegate that money out. Because at the end of the day, that's what's moving the world. You can say all you want to these young men. But as soon as I walk away from them, because I used to be that young man, very respectful, enough to say, yeah, block, yeah, you're right. What are you talking about? As soon as he turned his back, we're going to do something else. It's going to be 27 years of my life. Right? So realistically, more consciously, right, we need to be able to say, you know what? We need to get that lock. We need to get this. You know what I mean? We need to get that. Because we can't keep relying on the people that's oppressing us to give us anything.
True.
It's not making any sense. It's like we're going around in circles because we're trying to do something, and some people is not as righteous.
Right.
As we may be up there. Some of these nonprofit became the new hustle.
Absolutely.
So they saw that. And they say, you know what, we're going to shut this down. Because we might be giving the wrong money to the wrong people. Also to everything else that's going on in society. So
Right.
I'm saying, you know, and this is something I think about all the time. So I'm saying to myself, if I send that back to y'all, and you know, I'm still going to think about it, is that really economic structure for ourselves.
Right.
And that's the only time that we can be able to do anything. Because these people want jobs. I can't give you a job. I can say, I can give you a referral. I have nobody I can get on the phone and say, I'm sending it to you.
Right.
I'm sending this person to you, Erica. You know what I'm saying? And those things happen. Because that's how I got my job. Right? So I'm sending you the life camp. I went to life camp every day for about a month. You know what I'm saying? Until I got the job. But with people with my background, right, and my criminal history, there is no jobs.
Right.
Oh, and add on to limited education as well. So the reality is that thing is not going to stop because we need no structure. And I can look at a group of 20 kids. All of them got Jordans on.
Right.
They don't even buy nothing else. They don't like nothing else but Jordans. So I'm saying we have the money. If you can buy $8 or you can buy a bottle of liquor, you can do that. You can do that once a month. You can give me $40. So I think that's what that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, you said a lot. Tell me your name, brother.
You call me Star. John Robinson, you call me Star.
Hey, man, thank you, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. You had a response, Erica, or you just was co-signing? Because I mean, I'm gonna tell. I will say this, brother. Like in that, you know, one of the things from my organization, one of our things is like, how do we use culture to build real power? Right. So part of that, you know, there's if you see this economic and political power go hand in hand, right? And one of the best ways to see how that worked, particularly if you look at Washington D.C. and why people loved a mayor named Marion Barry, and it was because he used his political power to bring black people into a better economic situation, created so many black millionaires in this area that, you know, brother did whatever he did, and people said, no, bring him back because he was somebody that was creating that. So I think about as we move, and again, like, to me, we have power. Each of us in a collective different way. It's so much power in this room, you know, if we add into all the folks in this room, including yourself, right? And your roots, where you come from. You know what I'm saying? When you go to your block, you got power. Oh, that's brother. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do we put how do we, one, collectively work together, right? As we're all navigating similar circumstances, but how do we build that power? And so again, I look at, to me, the way this current mayoral race has played out has been super interesting, particularly because in the primary, the two largest voting blocks was 18 to 25 and 25 to 36. So it seems like young people are beginning to look at things in a different way. And so I think it's for us to say, how do we kind of tap in to that narrative, right, around affordability, and then how do we make sure these institutions, right, that are here do not fall to the wayside? Like, how do we make sure that the city of New York understands that, you know, Campaign for Police Reform, Life Camp, Brownsville End Violence South, Action Lab, these are institutions that we cannot live without. Right, Black Gotham Experience, right? These are institutions that, so I just think there's some way that, and maybe it starts here with this conversation, that we begin to look and say, okay, we're all going through these similar circumstances, because you talking and you talking, I'm like, damn, I'm going through the same thing. So, but how do we put that power together? And I think that's, to me, you know, and I'll end this. And I'll end this, like, for us, One Hood was, you know, one of our founding members was part of X-Clan. He was a brother named Paradise, the architect. He came to Pittsburgh. He said Pittsburgh suffers from hoodism, right? It wasn't. And their gangs came to Pittsburgh. It was really this hood. Even the gangs based on hoods. Homewood versus East Hills. So Homewood was Crips. East Hill became Bloods because they had this historic rivalry. And for us, it was like our powers and our unity. How can we collective? If we come together, we can deal with the real root problems that exist. But first, we have to find a way that, as the conscious people, the leaders come together. So we felt if we showed, me as a Muslim and my best friend as a Christian, that we could come together, that's an example for what some people on the street can do. So that's just a seed to drop, my sister. And then we'll close out, after Erica, we'll close out this conversation.
And I just wanted to say that one of the things that we were able to do under Bloomberg administration was to get the New York City Crisis Management System funded. And the uniqueness of funding a whole system, so it's everybody's work, right? And it's not me, so you can, you know, and sometimes it's really education and consistent discipline and education. Because you can't, you just said it. You said it and then asked it. You can't pick up the phone, Erica, and get somebody a job, right? Lumumba, Jashir, right? We can. We can. And so we have to also acknowledge our power. Your sole job is to get them brothers resources, to change their mindset, to organize them around economic power. And this is, remember the conversation I had with you, right? B. McFly, he's, you know, very large on Instagram, does a lot of the skits, acting artists, right? Can motivate people to give back into our community. So when you talk about, there is power in this room. But we don't see and acknowledge our power. And so we relinquish it every day to somebody else. Whether it's me, whether it's a job, whether it's an idea, right? We do have, but we, like Erica Ford can't do what Erica Ford used to do. Star gotta do it now. Right? And so you are the answer, as the cliche says. You're the answer you're looking for. You got the money, you got the bag. Because y'all are creative, y'all are different. But see, when we work together, which is the idea of what I did with the city. But a lot of people are like, no, I'm not working with those people. I don't like, even if it's not all of us. Because all of them don't agree with what that man is saying, he don't care. He's like, this is what you're gonna do, or you're gonna get fired. Right? And so how do the leaders begin to continue to educate, right, through rap, right? There's artists that would roll on the road with you, right? We have organizations in all of the different cities, right? Because we went on tour with Pastor Mike before, right? And so how do we continue to build those little things that become big things, right? And then we can get the resources, because people like to fund what's cool. They like to be part of what's cool. The Knicks, right? When they started getting hype and winning, then people started winning. I seen you at the game. I seen you too. Pittsburgh is not winning, right? Always like that.
He got 6 rings.
I know. But see, people like winning teams, right? And so we are the winning team. And so we're talking about I wrote a playbook, right? It's the Peace Doctor playbook. You get fumbled, you get tackled, you get sidelined, right? You get kicked out the game, like what we talking about with layoffs and cutbacks. But we the winners. And we gotta know it, and we gotta organize every single day. We have to organize. We have to win people over. We have to stand the folks who come in our community in any kind of way. These brothers, they got, you just said, there's 20 of them that got da-da-da-da-da. But who they doing da-da-da-da-da to? Because when they come, they run. So how do we raise the consciousness of people so that they understand we ain't the enemy? That bro that you making drill music about ain't your enemy. And there's too many of us to say that we can't bury the beefs. These is our children. These are our children. These are our family that's going to get these jobs. Right? And so we have to talk different to them. We have to collectively win them over. Everybody's got a job, like Lumumba said. Right? Mine's is a talk.
Thank you so much. Just want a closing comment. So I'm gonna pass it to you, brother. Just final words, and really to like, how can we particularly help like what's happening in Brownsville over these next couple of weeks?
Pop out. Everybody got a part to play.
Yeah.
You never know who you're gonna inspire. I don't care where you from.
That's right.
Pop out. Show up. Show our young people. We're coming out of the dark ages.
That's right.
We're not trying to be the hope and the dream of the slave no more. We're trying to be our ancestors' wildest dreams. Pop out.
Really quickly, this is the time of experimentation. We don't have all the answers. Try some shit.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, when we decided to do Black August, it was like, I don't know, we'll see if it works, you know. 15 years later, we got all these artists knocking down our door to do Black August hip hop. It's like, oh shit. Try it. Like literally, some of the best ideas were like just experiments. CPR was an experiment. Let's try this, let's see what happens. Let's try it, y'all. Let's try it. Some of the most, white folks do this shit and they just like, you know, get paid to try shit that fails all the damn time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Try some stuff, y'all. Let's just try it. I'm down, let's try it.
Wow.
Thank you. And my brother, last but not least.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the main last word was said, but I want to end by just thanking everybody, all the work that it took to put this together. It took a lot of work, believe it or not. To Erica, Brother Lumumba, Sister Yaritza's not here, Bigger and the Life Camp, all the people that come through. Y'all may have to come through here, you know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? And I appreciate y'all showing respect, and so I want to return that respect by showing up. And I just want to, the one thing I want to point out is, did everybody notice how as soon as we remove police out the center of the situation, the conversation becomes way more sophisticated, way more real. Police occupy too much space in our conversations about how we keep each other safe. And I think that, you know, and so I just want us to remember that, you know, I'm taking that lesson away. And yeah, you know, let's march, you know what I'm saying? Let's stay on the march, stay on the move. You know what I mean? By the way, we got Hammer and Hope is hosting a teaching on Asada Shakur, Monifa Bandele, and Dream Hampton are going to be giving this teaching Monday at Gladys Bookstore. So it's at 6 p.m. I want everybody to come through, pack up the bookstore. It's going to be real knowledge, not just about both mourning and celebrating the legacy of Asada Shakur, but also continuing that work of freeing our political prisoners.
And I did want to say, because the Action Lab was really instrumental in helping us put this on. We talk about hip hop. It's a hip hop festival, international hip hop festival that Action Lab is hosting this weekend. Where is it at, my brother?
At Hostos up in the Bronx.
Hostos in the Bronx. So the home of hip hop, Hostos in the Bronx is an international hip hop festival this whole weekend. go to the Action Lab. You can have more information about what's going on. Shout out to Rod Stars and Rebel Diaz and all those folks that's making it happen. So thank y'all for coming. We appreciate y'all, man. Oh, and thank you, Crooked Ideas, for helping us to put this on as well. Shout out to Crooked Ideas. Peace, y'all. Love y'all. Peace.